break, but I'll just try to go through Holst's biography, and then we'll get to some sort of fun things. So, British composer, he died almost at age 60. So again, you know, it seems so tragic. Born in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire. He was baptized Gustavus, so there was some sort of controversy where I actually heard something saying, well, he was British, so we should say Gustav, but all his friends say Gustav, and he was Swedish, Latvian, German, so supposedly, like I said, you'll hear in a very nice video of people that knew him, and of course the girls called him Gussie at the school, but I don't think that that's to his face. So his father was an organist, choir master. There were 3 generations of musicians in his family. His mother was a piano student, piano student of Adolf. And Gustav Holst, it was just obvious he was talented and was going to be a musician like most of his family, but he had neuritis in his right arm, so he really could not be a successful pianist. You'll hear actually in one of the interviews, one of the women, it's almost like a Monty Python skit where these women are, well, you know, and they talk about their experiences with him, but that he would sometimes conduct with his right hand and he would have to change to his left hand because of the neuritis. Attended the Royal College of Music. His teacher was Charles Villers Stanford. Wagnerite in his youth, we have this cartoon that I'm going to play that talks about Wagner was his hero, but it was only his hero for a very short time. I think Holst has various influence. He's a very interesting person because he was interested in Eastern philosophy. He learned Sanskrit so he could translate the Rig Veda, and he wrote music to poems of you know, English translations of Sanskrit pieces. So, and I think, you know, British music did have a lot of Wagnerian influence. I mean, Wagner influenced everyone, you know, these big, you know, lush orchestrations. But a lot of people thought that was a very thick type of sound. And Ray Vaughan Williams, who we've heard at the IPO, we've heard his The Lark Ascending, he took lessons from Ravel, and he also was a friend to Holst. So Ray Vaughan Williams had a much lighter touch than a lot of the British composers of that time, and folk music was a a big influence. So they also complained, well, why should we be setting English poems to German-sounding music? So they really were very quite eager to use folk songs from the islands there. Now, Holst was also a socialist, not in the political sense, you know, but he was very much for the common man, for the working man, and he felt that everyone should have art, and that it shouldn't depend that whether your parents had money. And you hear some of these things, you hear about Gustav Mahler, what a taskmaster he was, what a conductor, you know, just not a pleasant person. He had standards, he wanted high standards. And you'll hear one of the women talk, or no, his daughter talked about one of the girls at the school had a paralyzed right arm, so evidently she had her right arm against the thing, and she would move the violin to play the pieces. So obviously that can't sound very good, but Holst, he was very into amateur performances, into you know, bringing the standards up for people that were not going to the Royal College of Music. So this is one of the big influences. He also met with Bernard Shaw, who was also a socialist. So I do not want art for a few any more than education for a few or freedom for a few. I want all persons to be educated according to their capacity, not according to the amount of money which their parents happen to have. So he lived that philosophy. He met his fiancée at the Hammersmith Socialist Choir, and he took up the trombone. There's an all story. I cut it out because I was editing all these things because we don't have that much time. But there's a like one of the students tells a story that he was out in the fields practicing his trombone, and some farmer says, "You're making my lambs or my sheep give birth too quickly. You have to stop this." But he was, but yes, you'll hear that the daughter Imogen Holst, who actually, she's a fine composer too, and no, we've never performed any of her works, but I guess that's not too surprising because British music is not as big in the United States as in Britain. He was a teacher, and the real places that he taught was at St. Paul's Girls' School. There's a very famous suite for string orchestra called the St. Paul's Suite. You talk about Holst's pianist being his most famous work, but if you're a student, the St. Paul Suite and these band suites, he has two band suites that I can guarantee if your kids were in band in any of the high schools around here, they've played that music. Matter of fact, if we have any time at all, I'll play a few excerpts from those. Also, Morley College is a very prominent music program now, but he had zero before Holst really got there. So the pillars of his life: music education, music composition, amateur performances. Like I say, he lived that sort of socialist influence. And of course, matter of fact, not only Sanskrit, but he set Walt Whitman. He has this piece called Ode to Death, which doesn't sound like it would be a big draw for our audience, but it was written in 1919 after World War I in dedication to his colleagues and friends that had died in World War I. And it's a setting of some verses from Walt Whitman's, what's that? Last in the dooryard, when lilacs last in the dooryard bloomed. Yeah, so it's settings of that, and there are actually several settings of that. That there are several settings of that could be programmed sometime.